definition. Higher definition. I've been searching for more. When will I find it? When will I see it? What will I do? When will I know? Higher, take me higher. There's gotta be more. Gotta be more. There's gotta be more. I need a higher definition than what it seems. There's gotta be more. Gotta be more.
Come on and take me higher, yeah. There's gotta be more. There's gotta be more. I wanna know beyond all the rules and even past the school. I wanna know more, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I need a higher definition. Higher definition. I've been searching for more. When will I find it? When will I see it? What will I do? When will I know? Higher, take me higher. There's gotta be more. Gotta be more. There's gotta be more. I need a higher definition than what it seems. There's gotta be more. Gotta be more.
Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to Higher Definition Radio, where our goal is to take you higher. Definitely want to thank our special guests even before we get started, because I know this will be a great topic, great conversation about moral leadership, or what we consider leadership. In full transparency, sometimes when I hear our intro song, which was actually made for Higher Definition 16 years ago when we were in the studios of WRHI, it takes me back to those moments of WRHI in the studio for the 9 years we were there. And it's a little different because I can hear it in the headphones, as we all wear headphones when we're in the studio. So I want to thank everyone who's been rocking with us for 16 years. That's a long time. And I didn't at no point think we would be doing this for 16 years. I just knew we needed to have a voice within the community that's able to speak out and talk about real common issues and everyday issues. So I thank everyone who's been following us for that long. And even if you're new to following us, I want to say thank you for that. That is my serious announcement for today. From there, hey, we a week away from Father's Day. Just want everyone to know Father's Day is coming up. Dr. Martin thought there will be a lot of reservations being made and potato salad being made and, neckties being bought. I just want to say we're a week away from Father's Day, and just want to let everyone know one solid week from Father's Day. Just one. Tinisha, how are you, ma'am? It's good to see you.
I'm doing great. It's good to be seen. Good to see you too. And I will not forget that we are 1 week away from Father's Day. Just one.
There's a song, ain't that like a kid? One is the, but go ahead. We just 1 week away. You've been doing well, Tinisha?
Yes, absolutely. Doing fantastic. No complaints at all. God is good.
Good. Dr. Martin.
Yes, sir.
How are you, ma'am, and how you been doing?
I am well. I am doing well. Thank you for having me back. I was beginning to think you all had revoked my honorary membership here at Higher Definition Radio. It's been a while.
Yeah, you've been avoiding us, but okay, we can go with that. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Martin.
Anytime. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
No problem. And anytime we have Pastor Ed on, and I try to connect Pastor Ed with as many people, because Pastor Ed is a good guy. Like, I'm not just saying that. He's a good person, like genuine, straightforward person. And I think I know we need more people like that, especially when we're talking about leadership. We need more like that. So I'm glad you guys are on with Pastor Ed, and I'm on with Pastor Ed. Pastor Ed, how are you, sir? Don't forget, it's 1 week to Father's Day.
Yeah, I mean, what an introduction that is. I'll take that introduction. I'm just blessed to be with. Look at the guests on. Look at the other panelists. Like, why am I in this group? Like, one stands out here. The light-skinned, bald-headed guy doesn't fit in with all these superstars. So hopefully, I can hold my own, because I don't know. I see greatness in 4, and then I got me. So.
Nah, Pastor Ed. I identify as a rich white guy, so you ain't got to worry. You in good company. That's where I identify myself on every given day. So, and that's where I carry myself. So you ain't got to worry, sir. We all identify and we're special. So, for the people that's first time watching, Pastor Ed, tell us the name of your church and where they can find you and follow you.
Sure, it's Faith Connections Ministry. We're in Fort Mill, South Carolina, right across from Baxter. You can also follow us. We have online service. We have service 9:30 on Sundays. We have Christian education on Thursdays at 7. We're online or in the building. Either way, we don't believe that online is the devil like some of my church peers do. We actually want to share the word with as many as we can. So come check us out. And
before I turn over to Everett, I want to say good afternoon to Gene Hunt, who's been following us for 16 years, who's was at the Rock Hill Salvation Army and led that for a while, and now was in West Virginia and has moved himself. I think he's moving back to North Carolina. So Gene, we appreciate everything you do in the ministry, everything you do to point souls closer to salvation and to Christ. So thank you, Gene Hunt. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the guy I argue with every single day. Without exception, that we get into some kind of conversation. Mr. Everett Abel, sir. How are you?
Yeah, doing as best as I can, man. It's one of those no nap Sundays. So if there are any slip ups, we just have to charge it to that. And one thing about Gene, you mentioned that, he said he was in charge of the Salvation Army in Rock Hill. He was actually a core assistant at the Salvation Army in Rock Hill. But that really speaks to his leadership abilities when he's able to lead from a subordinate position, which is something a lot of people can't handle, can't do. So I always take my hat off to him for the work he has done in Rock Hill and in West Virginia, and what he'll be doing in North Carolina this year. So we're having a conversation about leadership. Me and Lamont, we talk almost every day. The conversation kind of sparked from online, we call it a debate between an old high school friend, and we just got into just a back and forth about morality and leadership and moral leadership. Like, what is it that we expect out of leaders? And whenever I have a leadership question, sometimes I use as a reference the FM 22-100, which is the Army Field Manual on Leadership. It defines leadership as the process of influencing others to accomplish the mission by providing purpose, direction, and motivation. And it also it tells us that the example you set is just as important as the words you speak. Mm-hmm. And when we think about leadership, whether it be on a national level or local level or even personally, like, that's the one thing I think that we all want to look for. You don't want somebody to tell you to be on time and then they're showing up late. You don't want somebody who's not practicing what they preach. And again, we got a lot of different experience on this panel. We got people who represent the business community, the ministry, social, civic organizations, education. So we're gonna have a really good time with this conversation, this topic. I want to start off with Pastor Ed and just ask you point blank. What do you think what do you think is the state of moral leadership in our nation? And then when I say our nation, I'm not just speaking about politically, but in every aspect of our life.
So you might not like my answer. So my answer is it's really irrelevant to me. And I hate to say it that way, but to me, you grow a family from inside out. So if everyone will start with their own family and grow their own family, the world will be better. Like if I spend my time worrying about people that are elected that have unlimited terms and have unlimited power and don't know really what we're going through, I'm going to be discouraged at all times. So I just try to focus family by family, because I feel like that's how we're going to change morals. Because as we increase the morals in the families and increase leadership within the families, they're going to vote for people that look like what they're being taught. And as we teach what needs to be taught in the family, they're going to say, no, that's not what. It's kind of like a dad taking his daughter out on a date, right? I should be the model for every man that she comes into contact with. I'm holding doors, I'm paying for everything, I'm treating her like a queen. If I can't do it, why should anyone else, right? So they should then look at my example and say, no, that's not enough for me. And I think we as a country, we're so used to just settling. We're so used to settling for mediocrity. We don't even know what good looks like. So I think we have to start by demonstrating what good looks like to our young people. We need to, and we need to also listen to what they're seeing and respond to what they're seeing. So I don't know if we can change it from the top, but I do believe we can change it from a level that we can control, which is family to family, community to community. And if we can start in one community and let it spill over to the next community, then maybe it'll go viral naturally.
Yeah, and I was kind of debating back and forth with how I was going to start it, because I did want to talk about well, we will be talking about leadership on a personal level, family level, as an individual. But a lot of us look at national news and things like that, and look from the outside in. Yeah, it's a great point that you made. We want to definitely follow up on that.
I'll just say this then. Let me give you the answer to your question. I keep my expectation low. I keep my expectation of politicians. We got a 78-year-old running against an 81-year-old. I keep my expectation low. If those are the two best candidates we have to run the most powerful nation in the world, I keep my expectations low. So if you're talking about nationally, what I expect, what we're getting, because really, frankly, that's what we're going to get. And with the electoral college, that's what's going to be chosen for us. We don't have a choice. We only have the choice between two candidates. So you better vote for one or the other.
All right, Ms. Springs, what about you? From the business community, the spiritual leaders, sports, entertainment, of course, politics, you name it. What do you think is the state of moral leadership in our country?
Well, yeah. Sometimes I would love to say that I think that, we are on the right path, and, that things are going great, and, everybody is on the same moral level, and, we just all got it going on. But I just cannot say that. I think that, unfortunately, in many areas, I think that we have perhaps gone backwards or down a road that we didn't anticipate necessarily traveling. I think that there are certain areas where, there's a time that you could say, well, were we ever really on the right moral track as a country? You could argue that very well. Were we ever at a time where you would say, well, you know what, morally, our country's got it going on. We are the United States. We are fantastic. But would that even be the truth? So I think our progression actually has gone down a path that, things tend to progress down when you don't have from the very top an example to say, okay, this is a good moral leader. This is who we can follow as a country. Look at the example that's being set here. Look at how this person is living their life. Look at, how they're treating those around them. Look at the decisions that they're making. Look at the policies that's being put forth and the people who are being put into office. No, I not all the time. I can't say that, and that's not even leaning one side or the other when it comes to politics. That's the saying going totally down the middle of the road. I'm sorry, but it's not there. And if it's not there politically, and if it's not there even down to our music and so forth, and if it's not there to the role models that are being put forth, then what do we expect of the common person that's walking down the street? I do agree with the pastor 110% that it has to become something that is individual, each individual person, each individual family, because that's truly all you can control. But in terms of on a total national huge scale, I say we have a lot of work to be done.
Okay, it sounds like y'all agree with Charles Barkley that he's actually not a role model. I disagree. But Lamont, one of the things I was thinking about, and we kind of talked about it off here, about the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then when you compare it to how we responded to 9/11, we kind of all rallied. Again, and maybe it's just my naive way of seeing it back then. I felt like we kind of rallied together after 9/11. And then after COVID-19, we kind of came apart. And then when this week, when I looked at the the House hearing with Dr. Fauci, I'm not bringing his name up to defend him or anything, but just to point out that him and his position, like there's no moral authority from him at that position, like, because there are people who just flat out won't believe a word that he says. And so how do you feel like we would respond if we had another pandemic? Is there any type of moral leadership who can bring us together?
No, I think we're past that point. I think as technology and information has gotten wider and wider, and everyone has access to their own source of truth that's either on their phone or their home computer, people divide themselves into lines. And you saw that with the explosion of technology, that people have access to their own information. I do want to say a part to your first question that you started on. Most leaders, if you go back through history, are flawed and terribly flawed. Yeah. So we sometimes live in this nostalgia to say, when our parents was around, it was better. No, it wasn't better. They were doing the same things. There's a lot of grandmas with 7 different baby fathers out here. And, we got to be careful on that nostalgia. And I saw that look, but it's the truth. It's the God honest truth. There's a lot of siblings that don't have the same father that's walking this earth and within the community. And also when we talk about within, what we find high standards, there's a reason that a biop has never come out about Martin Luther King Jr. His family has blocked it because he was a flawed person like the rest of us. He had his own demons and ghosts going on that drove him as a man. And so we have to be careful how we look for moral authority or leadership, because it's all going to be flawed. Every single piece of it.
All right.
I would just like to add, I totally agree with the sentiments of everyone who has spoken so far. But I think one of the things that I consider, or I think that we as a society has stopped considering, at least as of late, when we're talking about moral authorities on leadership, is all leaders should have some type of qualification. They should qualify for the position that they have in some form or another. I have to qualify to teach my students. For the civic organizations that I'm in, or professional organizations I'm in, I had to qualify to put my name on a ballot in most situations. So I think where, to Ms. Spring's point, when we talk about the progression of things and how things have turned out as of late, I think that is where I realized we were going downhill as a country, when we elected someone to the highest position probably in the world who wasn't qualified. And I'm not even talking about morally or ethically. I mean, as a politician, we have never seen anyone raised to the highest office and with no political experience. It just hasn't happened in our country. And so I think um, that kind of is when you blur the line between, okay, does making you a good or decent business person automatically qualify you? So I think when we can get back to what we are looking for in leaders across the board, then I think that will connect us to the morals and the values that we expect to see. Because again, most of us do vote for, elect people who have similar moral values as we do. But then when you're to the point, to Pastor Ed's point, where you might not have any candidates that align with where you are,
Right.
you have to make a choice. And so I think that just drills down to where you are personally.
Yeah. So man, y'all are really kind of bringing me down. Are there no heroes in our country? There's nobody we can look to. Let's run that one back around, because I would look at somebody again. I'm not just looking at it from a political aspect. Somebody like a Warren Buffett. Like if he goes out and invests in a company, like that stock is just going to shoot up because he's built up a lot of credibility and being a honest businessman, somebody with good judgment. And but outside of him, like am I missing it? Who else is out there who has some sort of a moral authority within their own field?
I think because you don't know. Like you saying Warren Buffett, I'm sure this 80-something-year-old man who lived through civil rights and who's been a part of that era, if you go back and if technology was the same and find out or had a conversation, you might be some things you don't like about him or you can't stand about him. Billy Graham is the same way, because people could have took moral stands about certain issues more vocally and did not. So let me answer from my point of view. There are a lot of heroes out there, but I accept my heroes as flawed. I accept my heroes as people just like me. Like I can't expect more out of this person than I expect out of myself. Like it can't work that way. I know people are flawed.
Yeah. So when we should, like Pastor Ed say, lower our expectations, not just for politics, but across the board. I kind of like you. When I look at the effects that social media have on our perception of leaders, man, if Muhammad Ali, was like doing his thing in this day and age with Twitter and paparazzi and everybody, following him around, we might have a totally different perspective of him. But at the same time, as we look at our leaders as flaws, are there any role models that we can look up to for people who are at least making a good attempt to lead by example?
My mother, my father.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm being real. Like I can't be way out of scope looking for these people I don't know anything about, that I've only saw on TV, that I only heard make an album, that I would probably never meet. Where the people who have the biggest influence in my life are in my household, my mother and my father. Yeah.
So Charles Barkley was right. And also happy birthday, Miss Edna.
Absolutely. My mom is a saint. Let's get that straight too. Her birthday was yesterday, and I want to say happy birthday to my mom, who's a saint. And no other words can go against that.
That's right. I think also that now in the time that we're in, that technology and everything has opened our eyes to the fact that some of the people that you may have held in this high esteem, even if you thought, in your naivety, that this person is a perfect, person and they could never do any wrong. And, they are, they're just the exception to the rule. I believe that now in this age of everyone being outed for everything under the sun, that, we may have a different perspective on that. And like, Lamont was saying, and realizing that these people are human and none of them are perfect. And, when you got cameras and everything everywhere and people who are more than willing to tell everything on everybody, it has definitely taken that yardstick that perhaps we used to measure people by and kind of blurred a whole lot of those measurements on that yardstick. I know in my eyes it has, and has definitely reminded me that everybody is human. And, people have things that they have done that, you just maybe would have never expected, but surprise, surprise, they're human as well. And many mistakes come out that you would have never thought would have come out. So it does do something to that whole thing of, is there a moral person that we can follow and say, okay, yes, this person is that example? It makes it very difficult to find that example other than within your own personal circle that on an intimate, and close level.
Everett, can I ask Dr. Martin and Pastor Ed a question? And I'll phrase it this way. As we talk about lifting the veil, and I know that's a very religious term that's spoken of in the Bible, exposing people. And I want to ask Dr. Martin first, who's in the education profession and who heads a group of people. And I'll let you explain who you head if you want to. But if you lift the veil and all of a sudden everyone's emails were exposed, or their text messages were exposed, or their pictures that they sent across to each other were exposed, you think we would have people in leadership?
The short answer is no. And I think, to go back to what Ms. Springs is saying, that has always been the case, though. It's just that because of technology and because of how our world has changed, and it is now more reliant on technology since COVID, it is more apt to come out in some form or fashion. So, yeah, I think leading in different spaces, at the end of the day, to your point, everybody is flawed. And so we have to manage our expectations when it comes to leaders, when it comes to ourselves, because we're not perfect either.
Pastor Ed, the church realm, man, if we start looking at deacon such and such or pastor such and such as text messages, his email, and I'm bringing this context up in a serious manner also. I know right now, the second we live in a world where our emails, our stuff is private, but we don't know 30 years from now if there's some court ruling that will say, hey, this is in public domain and you need to give access when this acts. Pastor Ed, will we have leaders? And then Everett, I'll turn it back to you. I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
So we need to measure role models by impact, not by perfection, right? Jesus is the only perfect person to walk the earth. So if we're looking for impact, if you're looking for, could I say like a LeBron James who came from a single parent household, who's done all that he's done, who's a billionaire, who's invested in schools, who has never gotten any trouble, who's married to his childhood sweetheart. And I'm a Jordan fan, by the way. And if you look at all that this man has done, is that a role model? I would say absolutely. And I think it's the same with the church. We know some of what Dr. King did. Fine. Did he make an impact to advance a cause that needed to be advanced? Absolutely. So is he a role model? Absolutely. And I think we've got to stop making it a zero-sum thing, like either you are a role model or you're not. Charles Barkley's wrong. Of course they don't pay millions of dollars. People are going to follow those people. That's the point. Like, you're going to follow people that are in the eye. Stephen A. Smith makes $10 million a year to give his opinion. And frankly, he doesn't have to be right or wrong. He just has to give his opinion. So for the church, what's hard about the church is everything's a soundbite, right? And if you catch half of an opinion, it becomes a soundbite that can destroy one group or not destroy one group. You could say, what do you think about this? Well, I believe this. Local pastor says he hates blah, blah, blah. That's not what I said. The Bible says this, I believe this. And I think that we've got to be careful of setting people up to fail, because our expectation, we want them to give us a break, right? We say, well, God knows my heart, but then we want everybody else to be perfect. And I think because of that, we hide our dirt, and then we expect our leaders to be perfect, but we're not perfect. right? So in effect, unless we're being transparent, to me, the transparency is something that we should do a little better as leaders in the church. You know, you want the congregation to be something. Why don't you tell your story first? Tell them where you were. Tell them what you struggle with. You know, pastors aren't going to say, I struggle with porn. Pastors aren't going to say, I have financial difficulties, right? Because they think that's weakness. But in my opinion, what it is God delivered me from it. And it gives someone a roadmap to say, okay, I'm not in this storm by myself. And I don't think we do that. There's no accountability as leaders anymore. We want to blame everybody else. And I think that unfortunately in the church, it's become Crips and Bloods. Like I tell you all the time, Lamont, it's you're either with my church or you're not. You're either with my ministry or you're not. You're either this denomination or you're not. You know, instead of what are we doing to advance this community, this kingdom? You know, what are we doing to make people better? So that's what I think the church needs to do a lot better job of. Instead of competing with one another, let's try to really serve our community. Instead of look at what I've done, just go out there and do it. Stop broadcasting how great you are in the community. Like, and just go out there without saying a word and just help people.
All right. So as we look at, again, we're looking at this on the national level. I want to kind of move kind of locally because that's kind of where we drifting anyway. Y'all not really a lot of fun on this a national level thing, but that's okay. When I look at, go ahead.
Everett, you know, I fell out of some folks on this national level stuff. Yeah. I had to make it a point just stop engaging people on this because it wasn't doing me no good. Like, it's some people. I just talked to a guy that I consider very smart, very intelligent, who told me that there was not an insurrection on January 6th to overthrow the government. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, we were having a serious conversation. He was like, no, you know, they wouldn't have taken sticks and bats and bear spray if they were serious. I'm like, are you serious? You know, so I have to disengage from that. And sometimes talking about the national stuff, besides in very close circles, is not healthy for me.
But the thing is that it's not just politics. Like there was a time when we looked at athletes, and again, we didn't know everything about their personal lives as well. And there are people who've been, you know, retroactively canceled to where once we find out about them, we kind of, you know, disavow them too. But we looked up to athletes, entertainers, you know, like people from different walks of life, spiritual leaders, and not just politicians, people in business. But now, like, we don't really have that same, I guess, you know, we don't have the heroes that we used to have back in the day. And maybe I'm just looking at this, you know, with rose-colored glasses and with nostalgia, everybody shaking their head.
We had 3 channels on TV, so let's get that straight. So anybody you saw, you thought they were making it. We had 3 television channels.
4, yeah, PBS too. PBS.
That's right.
Man.
Don't forget
to
PBS.
That point, like when something came on the news, that's just what happened. Like nobody argued about it. When Walter Cronkite came against the Vietnam War, Lyndon Johnson, you know, told his staff, like, we just lost the war. And like that type of moral authority that we had in the news media, and a lot of that comes with we have more access. Everybody has a voice. You know, we can come on and do a podcast and give our opinion. So the whole system has kind of changed now. But I do want to look at moral leadership from a more localized level, with the companies that we work for, people that we work with, our social, our civic organizations, our churches, our ministries. What is it that we expect from our leaders from a local level? Again, not just government, but in every aspect of life. The people who teach your children, people who coach your children, like I said, supervisors, directors. Like, what do we expect from those people? Lamont?
I think my opinion has changed. And, you know, for me, I used to have this moral position that buying any place that did child labor That's not something I would buy. As a person who's traveled the world from a manufacturing standpoint, a warehouse standpoint, you wouldn't be buying anything then. Like if you buying stuff out of China, there's child labor, but the Chinese culture doesn't look at age limits as, you know, you're supporting your household, your family. So it's not the same. If you're, you know, doing business in some South American countries, there's modern day slavery going on. So I have to dial back sometimes where I think my moral position is in life, and not always just look at stuff as black and white, because it's not as simple as black and white on moral things. And I got in a conversation at the barbershop, and Pastor Ed might disagree with me that someone said, well, you're born knowing right and wrong. I say, I disagree. Your right and wrong is set by your circumstances that are around you. There's people that are cannibals in this world who accept that as a normal way of life. You can't tell them that their way of life is bad. So we just have to be careful with that.
All right. And Pastor Ed, when you think about mentors, people who you deal with on a personal and professional level, leaders, people who you look at as leaders, like what are some of the characteristics that you look for and appreciate?
So to me, strong listeners. I think great leaders are always great listeners. You know, I think that leaders are empathetic. You know, I think you don't have to know what someone's going through to feel their hurt. Mm-hmm. So someone can be different. A woman could miscarry. I can't have a baby, but I can see the hurt in my friend and know that because she's hurting, I'm hurting. And to me, a good leader finds a way to channel that, right? You find a way to, even if you haven't had the same experience, you can channel the hurt. And if you can channel that, I can at least relate to the hurt and help with the hurt. I think that's, to me, those are the things for a leader. I know influence, like you said, your military definition, influence, that matters, and all those things matter. But I think a good leader gives the people that he's leading a voice. You know, I think you have to allow the people that you're leading to have a voice. And I think you have to hear them out, whether you agree or not. So we listen to understand, not necessarily to agree with everything. And I think good leaders try to do that. So whether someone's a crack addict, whether someone's not been in church their whole life, whether someone's sleeping around, my job is not to judge that situation. My job is to see what's causing you to make the choices that you're making, right? And then helping you to make better choices or different choices that might lead you to a different outcome, right? So to me, those are things that a leader does. And it's much less about what you say and much more about how you respond to what someone else is already dealing with, right? I think we're too quick to talk and not quick enough to listen.
And somebody just told me, I was talking to them about the same topic today, and they told me one of the stances they take is that they'll never do business with a man who cheats on his wife. And it's like, if somebody cheats on his wife and the mother of the kids, somebody who he's taking a vow to, like, they ain't gonna think twice about trying to get over on you. I think that the place for morality and ethics in every aspect of life, really there's a value in that, because people there's a trust level. And I think about, we always tell the story about how, back in the day they had the insurance agent who would go from house to house. The insurance man would, collect money. Mama or grandmama died and he'd give you $50. Like that type of credibility has been ruined. And we look at, somebody like Tinisha Springs, who is very honorable, ethical in the way she does business. Now you have to almost redeem the industry in a way that some people have a very negative opinion about the industry you're in. So talk about that from your perspective in the industry you're in, and the having ethics and being morally accountable. How does that help you in business? Like what is the benefit to that?
Well, and you're right. You're absolutely right. I too have heard of the agents that would go and collect the money. And I guess the money went just into their pocket because it certainly didn't go towards any policy that they were supposed to be collecting for. And so coming into an industry like that, where things like that have taken place, and it's very important, and I make it I guess a focus of mine to make sure that my clients understand and listen. I'm going to be straight up with you the entire time. I'm going to show you if what you have is great, I'm going to tell you it's great. If what you have is not great, I'm going to show you why it's not. So is it a place where you have to kind of prove yourself? I guess so. But when you're operating from a position of ethics, it's something that I don't even really think about. I don't have to sit there and plan out how I'm going to, make sure that a person understands that I'm actually on their side and I'm not the person with the snake oil or whatever, trying to come along and gyp them. And so with education, with knowledge, with all those type of things, I think that people are able to feel that out. And from my perspective, not just with the industry, but also just a position of leadership or whatever, I always want to make sure that I'm guiding people the right way, that I'm empowering them, that I am, equipping them not only for their financial life, but for their life, period. And I believe that a lot of that comes across in what I do, and it transcends from a business type of a relationship to a personal type of relationship where people can get that feel for you. I was talking with someone earlier, and she and I was saying, she was saying, well, I knew something wasn't right, with what I had, because I would ask them questions, and they would never come back with a complete answer. They would talk around it. They would use terms I didn't understand. They wouldn't break it down and, and make it clear and that type of thing. And that was, I should have known then. I should have known then. And so, that's part of what I make, my purpose, my focus is I want to make sure that I'm making things clear to people. And when you do that, that trust is established, and they realize that, okay, she's one of the good guys. I can relax and know that, I'm being led in the right direction. But yeah, you want to always make sure that you're empowering people, because when I do that, then I also feel like I'm putting good out, not just to that individual, but also to our communities and to our generations. And so it goes way beyond just me and that one individual. It can reach out to their family members and have a ripple effect.
And before you go to Dr. Martin, let me point out one thing. She gave a long answer, Tinisha, but the real answer is she's Black and she's a woman. She knows she messed up one person's insurance policy. It is a wrap. It is a wrap in her community.
And I don't mess up nothing. I double check it, triple check it. I ain't messing up nothing.
It is a wrap. But go ahead. I know you're going to Dr. Martin. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Martin, I think one of my pet peeves is, and Lamont, I tell you, and Ed too, like I'm an extremely tolerant guy. I always try to find the bright side and see, things from the other person's perspective. But one of the things that really that's hard for me to deal with is to see a person who is ambitious just for the sake of ambition. Like there's no purpose behind it. And so can you kind of talk about that a little bit about, we talk about the definition that the military gives. We talk about being dedicated to the mission and motivation and, being about the troops and the people under you. Like what type of, how does that drive you as a leader? Again, the dedication to the mission and helping the people who are coming up under you.
So if I may, I want to go back. Someone said, I think it was Pastor Ed who made a comment, but I want to just state for the record, Everett, I'm sorry that we're disappointing you as it relates to identifying role models and things. That I apologize. But I want us to all acknowledge and be aware that even if we're not talking about, the presidency or a local politician, in most environments, politics come into play, right? It's business is political. Education is definitely political. It just depends on where you are in the process. So I think that's one of the things when we're talking about our expectations and morals, all of that is personally driven by the people who are anywhere from the front line all the way up to the food chain. So I want us to acknowledge that it's a spectrum. But to answer your question, as it relates to, I guess, dedication and the purpose behind serving. And I'm paraphrasing. Um, I At the end of the day, I'll kind of touch on the point that I made earlier about people being qualified to lead and to be in certain positions, but I'll also say that goes to really the building trust and relationships with people. You it's difficult to tell sometimes when there is a genuine intent for people to serve in certain positions until you really get to know them. Because let's be honest, there are plenty of politicians who their intent is just to have power. We can call a spade a spade. We're not naming names. But for me personally, how I um, move in some of these spaces, whether it's my sorority or my professional association that I now lead, or being on one of our city boards, and I'll be honest, most of those opportunities, I was just telling my son the other day, those opportunities came to me. I didn't go to them, right? So I think for us we just need to be tapped in when we're trying to identify these moral leaders. It is really easy to put something on a website or a Facebook page, but if you are not paying attention, that's one of the things I like to say to both my students and people in my circle. We need to speak less and observe more. And at the end of the day, that's really how you're going to be able to identify someone's genuine intent. But for me, I've been serving since I was a child. I saw it with my grandmother and my mother. And so it was kind of expected. There was an expectation. But then the more I did it, the more I loved it. And it just, I guess, dominoed into other areas of my life.
All right. So this kind of leads me to one of them many debates that I was having with Lamont about I guess it's nature versus nurture. Are leaders born or are leaders made? Anybody have an opinion on that? I already know your opinion, Lamont.
Well, let me set the context. When we grew up, when people were still riding bikes, there was a person that led the pack on riding those bikes. And it's usually the same person that's a leader today. Like, it's natural, I think, for some people to lead. Some people don't have a skill set to lead. They're shy, or they would rather be in the back. And you see that on jobs. Some people check all the boxes to be a leader, but it's not natural for them. They're not people. You know, they're uncomfortable having tough conversations. Like, that's not leadership. Leadership is, diving in there. And I tell people that work for me, and this might sound strange, the work part, I can teach you how to hit a keystroke on a keyboard. I'm not concerned about it. I'm more concerned about how your family is doing, how you're doing as a person, how your well-being. Like, that's more important to me. And I have my team over to the house. I do cookouts with and I know it's probably people within the group who only come because they think I'm the manager and I want them to come. No, I want them to be here because it's not all about work. It can't be all about work because this job will go away, and you still you, and you still got a family. Sorry for that long answer, but Everett tried to paraphrase what I was saying, and I didn't care for that. And Dr. Martin is raining.
I hear.
No, hey, you're definitely right. You never in your life saw a group of 5 kids riding bikes side by side. Like, there's always either it's a all-out sprint or one kid is clearly in front. I would agree with you to a point. But as Christians, I believe that God calls people who we wouldn't deem qualified just to show how great he is. I look at David as a great example of a person. If you look at him from the time he was a little boy, it seems like he was a natural born leader. Gideon and Moses, not so much. And this is a great value of just answering the call. And even if you feel like you're not able or qualified, like, he'll equip you and qualify you. I don't know. I might be wrong, so I'll ask the pastor on that. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
And he's on mute.
Oh yeah, you're on mute, Pastor.
I think it's both. I think that we You know, you are born with a measure of leadership, right? There are some people, honestly, we're all born selfish. Every baby's selfish. Babies don't care what you're doing. They don't care what time of the day it is. They're going to cry for what they want, right? We have to teach unselfishness. But there are people that naturally gravitate towards taking accountability, right? And that was David. And you say Moses not so much, but even Moses, right? Moses took those two people fighting, and now it might not have been the way we wanted it, but he killed one to stop the fighting, right? He defended his brother, so to speak. So I do think that we're born with, like you said, God instills in different people levels of leadership, but I do think that that's also a canvas, and then people can develop that further, right? You stretch people, you challenge people, and that's where a variety of thinking, diversity of thinking is so important. You know, and in the church especially, it's where we fail, because if we're not careful, we want all 15 leadership members to act just like the pastor. That's the worst possible thing for a church. I want 15 different people with variety of thoughts that believe in the same God. So I can deal with the belief in the same God, and then you use the variety of thought, and you can pick and choose the most effective way to grow it. So I do think that's something that takes time, and that takes development. And like Brother Lamont said, those things aren't really done on a one-on-one. They're done when you get to know a person outside of the job. I need to know what makes you tick. If you got 3 kids, I can relate to that. So now you're angry because you have to work late, but I can relate. I have 2 daughters. I can relate to that. So you need to leave on time because you got a 90-year-old mother that has Alzheimer's that you're taking care of. And when you don't leave on time, you got problems. I can relate to that stuff. But that takes time and getting to know people. And all leaders don't get to know people. Because like you said, a lot of people just like the title. Yep. You know, they want to be, there are preachers out there that are bishops over 2 churches with 1 member in each one. So technically, yes, they're bishops, I guess. Right?
Well, that sounds like some hate right there, Pastor Ed.
Like I didn't call anybody by name. I'm just saying that there are people that haven't been called. I think Dr. Martin said it. There are people that haven't been called that are operating in things they shouldn't be operating in.
That's correct.
You got people doing surgeries that don't have the accreditation to do the surgery. And we do it in the church too. We've got people that are charismatic. That doesn't make you a pastor.
That's right.
You know, and being a charismatic doesn't necessarily make you a leader, because you also have to be accountable. You also have to be a listener. You also have to be unselfish. You also have to look to the group versus your needs, right? Those things, you could be charismatic and not be any of those things. So those are the people we hire when we look at a resume, right? And you look at it and you say, oh man, this person can really talk. But then when you ask them, have you ever made a mistake? And they say, no, I'll never hire anybody. If I ask, have you ever failed? And they say, no, I will not hire that person, because what I understand about that person is they're not accountable for their mistakes.
Right.
You're blaming someone else for every mistake. So I think those things have to be developed. I don't think coming out of the womb, yes, there are some leadership traits, but there are some people like that they plateau. Saul was a leader, and so was David. But Saul plateaued and David didn't, right? David took his leadership to the next level with God, and Saul didn't. So, yeah.
If I could add to that, I'm sorry, Everett. If I just want to add, Pastor Ed, I love your analogy when you talked about the canvas and how we are all born.
Bishops, but go ahead. I thought you were referencing the bishops. My bad. I won't forget that. But go ahead.
I know you won't. I won't either. And how we're all born with some level of, leadership traits. I think it goes back to the point that Everett brought up earlier about mentors. So we are typically the leaders we see modeling good leadership, right? Which is why we have not so good leaders, because they've probably seen that model. So I want to emphasize the importance of having a good mentors to be able to identify, because sometimes when we're hired in positions, we don't choose who our hiring managers are, right? They choose us. But there has to be a certain amount of, I guess, emotional intelligence to know, as you get to know them, this person is my manager, I report to this person, but I don't have to follow how they're choosing to lead. And so I think that is kind of where, when we have these discussions about leadership, It's not an all or nothing. It's not were you born with it or were you not. We evolve as leaders over time. There should be a progression, right? And so if that's not happening, we need to ask ourselves, what do we need to change our circle? Because if you're the smartest person in your circle, there's a problem.
All right. And Tanisha, I was thinking about the disciples. You know, when the Pharisees came to seize Christ, one of them sliced the ear off, and the other one was so scared he ran out of his clothes. But you know, God was able to use both people who you know, react to the exact same situation in different ways. And then if you take Apostle Paul, who was, you know, was killing Christians, and God was still able to use him. There's a natural aspect to leadership, but then there's God, and so let's talk about that some too. I know Pastor Ed talked about it a little bit, but just the spiritual aspect of leadership and not relying on your own strength.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, I can make that even on a personal level, because growing up, there's no way in the world I would have thought that I would have been necessarily in a leadership position. That's not what I aspire to. But life and experiences and the positions that God put me in, I felt a leader, I guess you could say, bubbling up within me. I felt leadership coming out of me. I remember having people tell me, you know, girl, you did that, you leading this thing. And I'm like, wait, I guess I did. But that was not, again, what I aspired to. And so on a spiritual level, I can definitely say that that was developed within me, that God definitely had a purpose. And that's what came from that. And I know that that happens with others as well. That's why I agree so much with Pastor Ed when he said both. And I was like, yes, absolutely. Because, you know, I believe that there are those who you can see leadership in. I can see leadership in my daughter from the time that she was just a little teeny thing or whatever. And, you know, she's walking into the school. I'm like, you don't need me to go with you? No, mommy, I got it. And she's gone. It was just in her. That's just, you know, something that just came out of here. I was like, oh, awesome. Okay, great. She's not a follower. She's the leader. But me, I would have been the one that was kind of lagging behind. But life happened. Things happened where I had to step up. God almost grabbed me by the hand and said, come here. I'm going to put you right here on the front, and I'm going to put you through these things. I'm going to carry you through these things. I'm going to let you experience. I'm going to let you hurt a little bit. And when you come out on the other side, you're going to realize that now you are in a position where you can help a lot of people, and you have a lot of people who look up to you and who want to follow you. And the position of leadership now is way more comfortable to me than I would have ever imagined. So absolutely, on a spiritual level, I can say that I am a witness to that. I'm a recipient of that. That leadership was definitely birthed, not birthed within me, but developed within me.
And Dr. Martin also talked about mentors and the importance of mentors. It's always very overwhelming when you come across somebody who can see something in you that you can't see in yourself, and it's very incredible. So we think about you know, how we influence people from that aspect. Finally, I definitely wanted to get around to this because it's something that Pastor Ed actually led off with, is on a personal level. We put this panel together. We got 4 parents on here, and I had this conversation with a friend of mine who's dealing with a lot of issues, and I know how much he loves his son, and I told him, I warned him, like, regardless of what you tell that young man, he's going to do what he sees. And so I asked you about that, Pastor Ed, the responsibility of being a parent. Of course, you want to provide, you know, you want your kids to have the best, but the responsibility of you as a father to provide moral leadership, so they will know what to look for when they look for a husband. How do you feel about that? Just again, as a father.
So when having 2 girls, right, they don't like what I say normally. So, but we've got to be more blunt with our girls. So I don't just say to them, that outfit, don't wear that outfit. I say, look, there are 60-year-old men fantasizing about you in that outfit on the internet. You think you're being cute, and someone is using that picture of you to fantasize. And I get graphic with them because I need them to understand how dangerous this thing is, right? And I think we've got to really have these talks with our kids. And this is where it comes, this is where communication, my parents didn't talk to me about this stuff. Like, we kept all that stuff inside. Do it because I told you to do it. Well, this generation questions everything, right? Absolutely everything. And you know what? And I tell them all the time, grandma would have knocked your teeth out for asking what you're about. But I'm going to tell you the answer, because I had to find out a lot of this stuff on my own the hard way, right? So I think a lot of this, Brother Everett, starts with, number one, we don't do a good job early with educating our kids. We don't make them literate. Like, we should be forcing anybody who's having a newborn that hears this, force your children to read. Do not make it an option. They need to read. Come on, read to them in the womb, read to them when they come out, and start setting those guidelines and expectations of education and literacy, right? But we also have to have an open door for our kids. Like, if you want to be a part of their process, you got to listen without freaking out. That's the hardest thing for me. That's why I'm bald. I had curly hair when I started. Now with 2 daughters, I've had to learn to understand and not agree. Like, their lifestyle. I'm a preacher. So what do I have to do? I have to be able to understand anyone who comes to me. So, certain lifestyles, we know what the Bible says, but I understand that piece. Let's move that out of the way. How can I help this person? How can I make this person better? And it's the same with our kids. How can I make you a better citizen, a better person later? Well, we're going to have this conversation now. And if you have an esteem issues and the problem is, you know, your daddy's not telling you you're pretty, so the first clown that you go out with tells you you're pretty, well, then I failed as a father, right? Those are the conversations that I have to have and raise the bar for our young people, because the world has told them to lower their bar. These girls are being told it's okay to call each other bees. It's all it's a badge of honor. I'm like, that ain't no badge of honor. You know, dog. You know, female dog. I don't care what race you are. Like, that doesn't. So you set better expectations, but you communicate the why behind it. You know, and before I tell them that's stupid, I'm listening. Even in my mind, I'm saying, you crazy. But I have to sometimes just listen. Okay, so you're saying this. It's like being a psychiatrist, right? So you're saying this. How did that? And my favorite expression is, how did that work for you? Because to me, we need to encourage our young people to make choices on their own, because they're going to make them anyway. So how did that choice work for you? You went off on that teacher that has a degree you don't have, and you were the class clown, and you clowned that teacher. Guess what that teacher did? They went home with their degree. You went home with a 0. So who really won in that altercation? You didn't. All your friends think you're cool, but you're going to be cool and unemployed. That teacher has a job, you know, and it's just putting things in that perspective. I think we don't do a good job. We're too busy. We're on our phones. We're watching movies. We're doing all this other stuff, and we're not spending the time, the quality time with our children, is showing them and demonstrating what. And then when we mess up, the last thing, when I mess up, I've got to be transparent. If I lose my temper, I need to pull them aside and say, look, that one was on me, but I'm not perfect. I make mistakes too, but be man or woman, you do take ownership. Take accountability. And I think those things lead to leaders, right? If they know it's okay to say I'm wrong and just have a solution, you know, come with solutions, not problems. I'm gonna shut up.
Ah, you open my eyes. Like, I ain't know parents was apologizing, and that's new. I didn't get that. Huh?
That's at Pastor Ed's house.
Okay.
It's my house now, because with a 23-year-old and a 17-year-old, I learned that my way of beating them until they did what I wanted to do wasn't changing anything. Right. It was only changing things for a moment until they get strong enough to no longer be in my house, and then they're going to do what they want to do, unless I can show them mentally the value in what I'm trying to discipline them for.
That's right.
Dr. Martin, when you talk about being a leader of your own household, the decisions that you make professionally, personally, like every other aspect of life, how heavy does that weigh in your thought process, your decision making process?
Yeah. So Wow. I would have to say being a leader in my home, of course, is the most important to me out of all the environments I'm in. Um, and having a son, right, who is now a young adult, similar to Pastor Ed, I have to parent him differently now, and because otherwise he's going to shut down. He's not going to listen, right? And I recognize early on, because I'm a single parent, have never been married, that I couldn't do it alone. So, like many other single parents, I had a village. I have family who were supportive, and I made sure he was around positive Black role models. Because again, it goes back to what we are talking about being great leaders. You have to see it being modeled. And so I'll take this opportunity to give a shout out to the Kappa Alpha chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, who mentored my child since he was probably about 7 or 8 to the time he was 18. And so those brothers, along with his uncle, I couldn't do it by myself. So I'll say all that to say, because I could go on and on about that, making good decisions, being having to be a leader in my home by myself probably made me a better leader in other environments by virtue of my circumstance.
And I would say definitely, like me and Lamont talk about this all the time. We've been knowing each other since we was like 14 or 15. And and I could definitely say that, being married and having children have definitely made, I believe you've always been a leader to a certain extent, but just to see the change in you for that responsibility of fatherhood is like you just took a power pellet and took off. So I definitely believe that. And then coupled with the fact that you got a little general, a future general in your house who's got some natural born leadership skills. Tell us about how does that affect you and your decision making process? The way you live your life, the example that you want to set for your son and daughter.
And nothing to take away from the church or my faith, but being a father is number one thing that's driven me. My dad, who's been married to my mom 55 years this year, I've saw a perfect example. Like, he's no nonsense when it comes to providing. My dad missed many vacations because he worked and provided. Like, you don't understand younger, but I understand now. Growing up, I never saw my dad have a whole bunch of men over to the house, because when I listen to him now, I think the same thing. Like, you can't have a whole bunch of men around your young daughters pattern some crazy behavior. My father, he'll use the N-word. Let me say that. But other than that, no cuss words. No cuss words. And that's an older generation where that word just slides out like it ain't no tomorrow. When I first got married, my wife doesn't cuss. And we're in the military at the same time, stationed next to each other. Like, cussing in the military is like natural language, just every other word. But you ain't getting no reaction from it. So I haven't cussed since. And I tell people all the time, I ain't cussed since 85. I'll say that. But it's also because of my kids. Like, I don't want them to hear that and see that and think that's acceptable. So there's a lot of aspects of my life every day, even not being a failure. Like, there's not going to be a foreclosed sign on the house. If they need something or even want something, I got you. You know what I'm saying? We ain't living like that. Like, where that I've put myself in positions through education, through working hard, that this stuff, it can't play out where I'm a fail. Because we talk about this a lot. The first time a foreclosure sign is in front of the yard, no one's going to look at my wife. They're going to come to me and look at me. And that's for any man. Like, the money messed up in the house is the man's issue. And that's old school. And I know that's what my father instilled in me. And, on a last thing, even fixing things in the house, I'm surprised that so many men who don't fix things around their own house, like, can't fix a doorknob, or I was modeled to show that. So anytime I'm doing something with my son, even though he hates it, you know, hey, let me show you why I'm doing this. Let me show you how to do this. So because he's gonna be somebody's husband one day or somebody's uncle, like he got to know how to do something. And that's just my logic. I know that's a long answer, Everett, but that's just my logic and how kids marriage changes you, and it should change you. I can't hang out with the same people I used to hang out with.
Yeah, and Tanisha, what about you? Like being a model, a role model in your home. Again, it's one thing to be a mentor for other people's kids or young people, but the responsibility of modeling certain behaviors in your home, like how does that drive you?
That's probably the number one driver, I would say, in my home is I want my children to see a strong mom. I want them to know I'm a human being. At the same time, I don't want them to feel like they have to go through life being, you know, Superman and Wonder Woman. So they definitely know that I'm human. But at the same time, I work very hard to make sure that my children have a certain upbringing. And I agree with Lamont. You know, just there's certain things I'm just not going to allow to happen. I'm a single mom, but there's certain things that's just not going to happen. There won't be a foreclosure sign in the front yard. There won't be, just certain things that's just not going to go down. Both of my kids have told me that they want to be, business owners. And I know a big part of that is because they've watched mom for the last 16 years own her business. My daughter, I remember actually being at my feet, literally, as a little girl, at my feet under my desk as I was working in the home. And she would hear me on the phone and making calls and that type of thing and helping people on the phone. She's like, Mommy, I want to help the people too. And so they pick up and they watch all of that and they pick up on all those things. And it has shaped them into who they are now and their aspirations for the future. So, they are my number one drivers in terms of being a good role model for them and letting them know that there's nothing that they can't accomplish and nothing that they can't do regardless the circumstances that may occur in their life. And that's very important to me that they know that.
Hey, Tanisha, just real quick, how does that make you feel when you being a business owner to have your daughter come to you and say, I want to be a business owner? Like how does that make you feel inside?
Oh, please. We ain't even gonna go there. Like all of it was worth it. Every bit of it was worth it. All the hard hours was worth it. All of that. I mean, and I remember actually reaching down under my desk and picking her up, literally. She was truly at my feet. And so it blows your heart up. It lets you know that, okay, I did something right and that they were truly watching me the entire time. So it's not a thing of the kids don't see what's going on. Oh, yes, they see. They saw those hard hours. They saw the long hours. They saw the successes. They saw when it didn't go so well. They saw all of that. And at the end of the day, what they both took away from it was, if Mama can do it, I can do it too. And that was all the validation that I needed.
All right, we got a little bit more time left. I want to kick another question around. It's something me and Lamont, actually, he kind of challenged me with this. We're all, people who try to lead and be active in our church and in our community. And one of the things he talks about is that, don't do more in your church or don't do more for the pastor than you're doing at home. And again, I can't very well be at the church cutting grass and I got grass coming through my window. So I'll run you with this, Pastor Ed. The importance of, then, you being a pastor, but at the same time, whatever it is that you exhibit in the church, you want to make sure that you're doing it at home. Like the same values that you espouse to the church, you want to make sure that the people in your house are seeing it. You don't want to be standing up. Reverend Ponder talks about this all the time. You want to be standing up preaching on something and your wife is sucking her teeth and grunting. You want her to be saying amen. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, but again, it comes down to if we're transparent in the home, even though your kids see your warts, they respect the fact that you've been transparent with them with it. So when you come correct at the church, they're like, yeah, daddy's not hiding anything. He's crazy. So it's not like I'm trying to be someone I'm not. I am who I am, right? I'm not perfect. And I think if we could get more people to understand, it's not about looking good. The church is always trying so hard to look good, but why not be perfectly imperfect, right? Be who you are and be the best at who you are you can be. And I think we can really start changing that dynamic, right? I need to love my kids. I need to have time for them, right? So when church is over, I've got to talk to them. What did you hear today? How I even ask them, how did I preach? Because they're honest. They'll tell me too long. And here's where it's important. Too long is that generation. And if they're saying it, the rest of their generation that won't give me that fair critique, I'm getting what I need, right? So I just think that a lot of it is just really give and take. Certain things I don't budge on with my kids. I'm like, no, you're not gonna disrespect your mama. If you disrespect your mama, I'm gonna go crazy. Stuff like that. If you disrespect anybody, I'm gonna go crazy. But I am gonna explain to them the why so that they understand where I'm coming from. I got so much trouble. I was raised by a single mom that was no joke. Like she would whoop you first, second, and third and ask questions later. Like there was really no explanation. So I wasn't afraid of police. I wasn't afraid of school. I was just afraid of my mom coming in and knocking my head off. So, but I got in all kind of trouble because I didn't know that the questions I had, I was too afraid to ask. So I vowed I would never do that with my girls because I don't want them to get in a situation where some dude, God forbid, is beating on them and they feel like they can't come home. Or they feel like, not telling me because they think I'm in danger. No, tell me, I'll never be in danger. I might be in jail, but I'll never be in danger, and I think those are the conversations. If we have them outside of the church, when it comes back in the church, they're like, yeah, daddy's talked about that. Like, so I think that's what we got to do a little bit better of. Just, you don't have to be perfect, but you have to be accountable.
Absolutely. And Dr. Martin, just you being a community leader, the things you do professionally, and you point out the fact single mom, like what the pressure of getting it right at home first. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure thing. I'm raising a young Black man. I think that just says it all in today's environment. So it's interesting. I'll leave that comment. It's interesting that I have been in these different spaces while I was raising him. And I will say that most of those spaces served as outlets for me. So again, they made me a better mom, better leader. But I knew I only had one chance to raise my son. His father, he knows his father. I don't want to give the wrong impression on the internet. But he wasn't in the household, to Lamont's point, as far as his what he saw modeled. And so that makes a difference. But I knew I had to make some decisions and again, put him in the right environments around the right people. He put him in he's an athlete. So I think being in that space taught him some of the discipline and things that I couldn't teach him. I knew I only had one chance. And thankfully with God's oversight, he's turning out to be a great young man, but he has been and always will be my top priority as long as I'm on this earth. And so I think that's not any different than how we all feel as parents. He's my biggest investment.
All right. And then Tinisha, again, you're doing well as an insurance on an insurance business, providing a great service for people. We don't want to find out at your funeral that you don't have insurance. You got to pass around a hat or start a GoFundMe, we're going to be judging you. All right?
We're good. I'm good. I promise.
But really the importance of demonstrating the values that you believe in at home. Again, whether it be professionally and personally, spiritually, but making sure that and again, Pastor Ed made a great point. Like we all flawed, like everybody going, but being able to work at trying to show the values that you believe in at home.
Absolutely. Different situations and scenarios will come up and you'll get to see your child and how they react to things and what they say on when certain things happen, and you get that moment of, okay, I raised a good person, regardless of all the other stuff or whatever. It's like, okay, this is a good human being, that I take that is the biggest feather in my cap, I guess you would say, is just, to hear them and how they react to others. And, my daughter wants to make sure that nobody, well, mommy, they were trying to bully and they're not going to do that person that way. And that's wrong. And I'm like, that's a good person. That's just a good moral, to have and to be concerned about other people. And my son is the same way. And so, yes, I think that you do try to model those things as much as possible as you can, and you try to lead them in the right direction on every aspect. But at the end of the day, Lord, just let me know that I raised some good people that can contribute to society and be decent and, be caring and loving, concerned about, the well-being of others. And hopefully the rest will fall into place for them. So yeah, I think that that's a biggie for me. That'll be good people.
All right, and that's that's one of the, I guess I'm sure I made Lamont mad through the years. Sometimes he would be complaining about his son. And I listened to about half of it, and like, bro, you gotta get a kid, man, knock it off. But talk about that, Lamont, just the importance of being able to, or not just being able to, but showing what you believe in spiritually, the standards that you were raised with. It sounds like I hear some thunder or something going in the background.
Exactly what you're hearing.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know somebody's hungry or what, but all right. Good. But going to that, man, just the importance of actually showing what you believe in to your kids.
And both of my kids, you've been there. Day one, my kids been born, so you know them. My son's very quiet, and you wouldn't even know he's in the room. My daughter's total opposite. She's gonna make her presence felt, and I always think about them and what I'm modeling towards them. Like, I can't be as involved as I am in the church. I can't turn around and miss their events because I'm doing. It doesn't work that way. I'm, and this, Everett. I'm always working out in the yard doing something, trying to cut grass, always out in the yard. But that's what I saw my dad doing. And then, and I think most people have heard me say, I've had quite a few surgeries. I've had 15 surgeries, and 6 of them have been on my spine. Even through that process, I can't just lay around. I had to get back up and get this thing going. Like, I'm sure people who've had similar procedures that I've had, especially with the spinal fusions. I've been cut not only in the front, but in the back, from belly button down and from the middle of my spine down. I'm sure there's people who they done. Work is over. They waiting on that check. And God bless them. That's their thing. But there's never been a even thought in my mind, because I got kids at home. I'm a man. I got to get back up and get this thing going. And I don't know another way. And I'm sure there is a lot of ways. I see people with other ways, but I don't know that way. So for me, modeling the behavior and just kind of on a real life thing. 2 Sundays ago, my son missed church, and I had to let him know, hey man, church started this time. And he hadn't did it before, but in my mind, as my dad, I can't let this stuff slide. Because once you let the first thing slide, hey, I don't care what time you come in this house, but church started this time on Sunday morning, and you need to be there. If you living in this house, now somebody else's house, you do anything you want, your house. But on this house on Sunday morning, I don't care if you get in 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, you better be up and ready to go to church that next day. That's the rules of this house. No matter how old it gets.
Yeah, you got a good kid though, man. You got a good kid.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. He's still a young male that I need to make sure to stay a good kid.
I'm sure he'll appreciate it when he gets old, if not now. So right now I want to go around with some final thoughts. One of the things I want to say just about this panel, it's always a great experience to be able to bring together different people from different backgrounds, different perspectives, different personalities, and just see how you do things and how you work. That's one of the great privileges of being on here on High Definition Radio. We get to meet some spectacular people, and but different. So again, I want to go around with just final thoughts and start with Miss Tinisha Springs.
All right. Well, as far as final thoughts, thank you all for having me on this evening. I do appreciate that. I enjoyed the discussion. I think it's one that definitely needs to be had, and I hope that the viewers got the same feeling. And I think that leadership on different levels, whether we're talking politically, whether we're talking in our jobs, and most importantly in our home, is something that we should all focus on and continue to focus on and continue to do your part, because all we can really, in my opinion, control is our little our little part of the island, and do the best that we can to put out good people, good human beings that hopefully will contribute in a positive manner. So thank you so much. I enjoyed the conversation. Everybody have a blessed evening.
Oh, thank you. Great to have you. And then Dr. Martin, once again, great to have you back. I don't know who dropped the ball. We got to talk to somebody in leadership or management. Make sure we get you back more often.
Thank you, Everett. Thank you for having me back. I echo Ms. Spring's sentiments. I would just say, I've been blessed to be in different spaces to be a leader. And we've talked about, being qualified, being called or equipped. I would encourage people that if they find themselves in a position or situation where they feel that like they're not prepared and they've kind of been thrown into something, just lean on the Lord or whoever your higher power is, and just get in the trenches, because that's how actually most of my leadership positions have how I've evolved into them, just doing the work. And when you do the work and people can see you're authentic and you're doing it for the right reason, the blessings will follow. So thank you again. I've enjoyed myself as well. Appreciate it, and we'll be in touch, definitely. And Pastor Ed, definitely salute to you, man. Everything you got going on, and I often tell Lamont I'm kind of worried about asking pastors to come on, because not the pastors are long-winded or nothing like that, but just that you have so much going on professionally, personally, raising kids, working, and then you have a church responsibility. And I don't like to be a burden, but man, every time we say Pastor Ed's name, man, you always game, you always come through, man, and very happy to have you on the show. You have any final thoughts?
No, I'm just honored. I mean, community is everything, right? A church, a pastor can't just pastor the people in the church. You have to pastor the community, right? We're supposed to service our community. We're a hospital in a community. And if we're not able to do these things, how do we grow our community? So there are role models on here right now. There are 4 other role models in me speaking. Y'all are role models. Like if there are 4 people on here with me right now. If you ask them their story, they are role models. How do I know that? Because they're role models for me. When I'm hearing their story, I can say I can learn from all 4 of them, right? So when we're looking for our role models, let's stop looking for perfection and look for what we can learn. I think we can all learn from each other, and learning is always continuous. Stop looking to learn from someone always quote unquote above you, because folks that are taking orders from you, folks that are entry level, might have a system or a process that's better than yours. And I think that's what leadership is. It's really finding a way, right? And it's listening first, listening second, listening third before we respond. And that's my encouragement to anybody who's listening tonight. If you don't have a voice and you need a voice, you're gonna get a voice. Your kids will get a voice. If you don't give them a voice, the world will. That's right. So I promise you better give them their voice before they go out in the world and do some crazy stuff, because at least gangs are listening. Everybody else is listening to them but us. Yeah. And we wonder why they make the choices they make, because we're too busy to say no before we even hear it out.
All right. Thank you once again, Pastor Ed and Brother Rashford. Can you give us your final thoughts and also close us out, if you don't mind?
Everett, I'll let you give us your final thoughts, and then I'll close us out.
Oh, well, I already gave mine. Like I said, I'm honored just to be on the panel and to just to be around such great accomplished people. I think about leadership a lot. And we talked about it before we went on about Dr. Martin says everybody in the military is leaders. Yeah, not so much.
They answered the call though. They answered the call.
Yeah, well, I actually didn't even start reading military manuals until I got out of the military and started like trying to figure out like how to lead from different positions. And I found some great value in some of these manuals and just some of the experiences and some of the people that I had as mentors. Like I told you before, like there are people who see things in me that like I'm not sure like what are you looking at. We deal with some imposter syndrome, like maybe I'm not good enough. But I'm just so thankful just the village that I have around me and the people who encourage me and just keep me going.
And I want to say a couple things, a couple observations. First, thanks to our guests, the people that's watching, hung on for this time. Sorry we're running a little bit long. And yes, the rumbling you're hearing, it's a pretty big storm in this area right now. It's really coming down. Another observation is Dr. Martin's been to one or two too many veterans or Memorial Day services. When she's talking like that, they answer the call. It's some people that was their only call, and they were kicking and screaming on that call. Mom and them made them do it, so let's not lose perspective. Second, Pastor Ed, we need to have you on more. You got a lot to get off your chest. You're talking about bishops out here. You're talking about graphic, what you tell your kid. We need more of you, Pastor Ed, and we thank you. Tinisha, you better mess up them folks' assurance. That's my piece of advice. There's a lot of things can go wrong. You better not be in that mix. I tell you that.
I got it.
Okay, I'm just letting you know. There's somebody grandma out there right now shaking their head. I don't know, baby. So I do want to thank everyone, and even laughing. If most people know, I laugh at every show. But if you understand my story, being down, being mopey, that ain't it, man. I got enough problems in my life to think about. Then not smiling and poking fun at myself, laughing with others. We gotta laugh a little bit too in this world. Leadership, and especially we talking about moral authority and moral leadership, man, that can be tricky. We all need to watch who we follow and who we declare as a leader, because not everyone is a leader. Some people are fake. They are really fake out here. So thanks again for all of our guests. Great show, great conversation. Thank you again. Thanks to all the people who watch and listen. Please be safe out. As I just heard of another group of people with COVID today who in a family who got it bad. COVID is still real. COVID is still killing people. And I know we started off the show talking about COVID. Like, man, don't be one of these people out here that don't believe it ain't real. And it will do damage, and it's killed a lot of people. It's killed over 1 million people in this country. So please be mindful of that. And with that, I want to say have a blessed and safe week. Please tell someone you love them, laugh a little bit, smile a lot, hug on someone, and don't forget, we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. Have a blessed and safe evening, everyone.
And happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's Day.
1 week, Father's Day.
All right.